Good afternoon. You're watching another episode of The Senior Focus, and I'm your host, Attorney Nick Kaltzis. I've mentioned on many occasions that the senior population is exploding at a dramatic rate, and it's really important that the silent majority, the so-called silent majority, be silent no more. There are a lot of things that seniors need to do to protect themselves for the eventuality or the possibility of needing long-term care in the future. And, I've been an attorney for over 25 years, and really all of my clients, except for maybe one or two, wanted to age at home, wanted to stay in their homes. That's not always necessarily a very easy thing to do unless a person plans for their future. I have with me attorney Kathy Chekani today, so we can talk about some of these things. Hello, Kathy. How are you?
Good morning, Nick. How are you?
I'm fine. I thought we would talk about some basic estate planning. It's very important that a senior, actually all adults, enter into at least a basic estate plan. And as far as a timeline, a lot of people will ask me what I think they should do as far as their age, when they should become involved in, some kind of estate planning. What would you say to someone? If someone were to say to you, Attorney Chekani, what's the right age for me to become involved in estate planning? What would you say?
I would say they should at least start thinking about it when they're 50, 55, and then maybe when they're 60, they should do something about it, and see an attorney. But I think that people should be thinking about it right along. And I think what we run into quite often is people are waiting for the last minute to do things,
It's a crisis-driven society.
Absolutely.
People wait until a crisis occurs, and then they rush into the office. They want something done immediately. And oftentimes, that's not possible.
No, and then it becomes a little more difficult to accomplish what they want to see accomplished as a result of having these documents drafted. So if you can get people to start thinking about it sooner rather than later, then everything will be in place, and so that everything should go along quite smoothly. But I think a lot of people don't think about it. I think a lot of people are somewhat, I hate to say it, in denial that they won't end up in a nursing home. And in most cases, say in a couple, one of them will end up in a nursing home.
And I like to differentiate between, we'll say, what I'll call basic estate planning. And I think that is something that really should be done at an earlier age. Like you said, whether someone's 45, 50 years of age, my basic premise is all adults need at least a basic estate plan. When someone, like you say, is in their 50s, at least be thinking about Medicaid planning. And if you want Medicaid planning, don't wait until you're 75, 80 years of age to try to institute some kind of plan, or wait until there's a crisis. If you did, you've waited too long.
Oh, I agree. And I think, and this is just speculation on my part, but I think a lot of it has to do with people that do have some amount of assets not wanting to lose control of those assets. They want to be able to access them easily. And so when you say, put your assets in a trust or whatever, they're thinking, I'm losing control of these assets and I'm not going to have, the easy access that I want. They like to feel their money,
that's a common scenario that we run into. People don't want to, give up control over their assets. They want to remain in control. And I suppose that's one of the reasons why I look to bifurcate the planning. For a basic estate plan, I think predominantly of surrogate decision-making documents. I mean, a lot of people will think, I don't need an estate plan. I don't have enough money. You need a lot of money for something like that. But, that's not really true, is it?
No, it isn't. I mean, I think when we talk about basic estate planning, we're talking about a will, a durable power of attorney, and a healthcare proxy. And actually, those would be, good for anybody, really, because, who knows? It doesn't matter what age you are. You may end up in a hospital and you may not be capable of making your own medical decisions, and you need somebody. And in the same frame is, say you're in the hospital and you're in for a longer period of time and you can't take care of your own business matters. Well, the durable power of attorney will allow somebody to take care of those matters for you while you're, we'll say, incapacitated.
So we'll talk about what I call surrogate decision-making documents. I don't think I'm the only one who calls it that. I think a lot of people call it that. But like a durable power of attorney. I oftentimes tell people, you know, that's probably the most powerful document in your estate planning portfolio, because you allow another person to make financial decisions for you. Not necessarily only in the event you're unable to, but certainly in the event you're unable to. And oftentimes the question comes up, what's the difference between a durable power of attorney and a power of attorney?
Okay.
And, you know, the word durable just indicates what? That the power of attorney remains effective throughout a person's incapacity.
Correct.
So if there is a power of attorney and a person becomes, we'll say, cognitively impaired, what happens to the power of attorney?
Well, it sounds like you're describing like a springing power of attorney where the incapacity has to be, basically be, I don't want to say certified, but you need medical professionals to say this person is unable to conduct their own business, and that's when the document springs into effect.
Right.
Where with the durable, as soon as it's executed, it's in play, so it's there when you need it.
Yeah, the durable power of attorney, as we had indicated, is a document that lasts throughout a person's incapacity. And as you also just mentioned, it's possible to have a springing power so that in the event you don't want it to be immediately effective, it can become effective after a particular event occurs. If a person were to have a power of attorney upon incapacity, that document's no longer valid. Whether you try to do a springing power, whatever language you use in it, when a person loses capacity, that power of attorney is no longer valid. And another thing I oftentimes will tell people is it's a contractual obligation that's guided by the laws of agency. There is a principal, that's the person who had the power of attorney drafted, and the agent makes decisions on behalf of that person.
Correct.
Oftentimes people will have fear that the person who's the agent, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a son or a daughter, a friend, a relative, a loved one, they're afraid that there might be some kind of mismanagement, or that allows the person to take their money. That's not the case, is it?
No, it isn't. But I think what we try to advise our clients is make sure you think about who you want to have this legal authority to act on your behalf. And basically, you have to feel confident and trust that they understand what your needs are and what your wishes would be, so that they can fulfill them, when they take care of your business.
I think any of the legal documents we talk about, it's very important that a person have comfort with who it is that they nominate and appoint as their agent in these documents, because the vast majority of them are revocable appointments, revocable designations. So, in the event you're not comfortable, you're not happy with the work someone's doing, it is possible to remove them and have someone else take their place. But you want to have a certain comfort level when you initially appoint someone that they're going to do what it is you want done.
Oh, absolutely. And the other thing is you don't want to run into a situation where the person you initially appointed does something that goes against what you'd want to happen, and then maybe you've lost something, and now you have to try to correct it after the fact. So, I know we usually tell our clients, really think about who you're going to nominate for these positions so that you feel comfortable with them. And no situation is perfect. As much as you can say that, things happen. We see it all the time, things happening. So,
there are certain provisions, I'll say, paragraphs, provisions that I think are very important in the durable power of attorney, particularly in the event someone becomes ill, requires some kind of long-term care. There are certain provisions in that power of attorney that I think are very important. One of them would be a self-dealing authorization that allows a person to be able to participate in some kind of a some kind of a gifting plan that the person may institute. And why would someone perhaps institute a gifting plan? For mass health purposes.
Well, sometimes, you know, and I think we've run into the situation, it doesn't always work out the way we want to. But a lot of times that durable power of attorney has, we'll call, I don't want to say other obligations, but other involvement with the person that he has the legal authority to do his business. And so sometimes the durable power of attorney has to accomplish certain transactions or whatever that may be to his benefit, but it's still, in the end, it's to the benefit of the individual who has appointed them.
You know, the other thing that I think is very important, not only the self-dealing authorization, but a gifting provision.
Yes.
So that there is something contained in the power of attorney that allows the agent to make transactions and to transact business that is in the, you know, for the benefit of the principal.
Right.
And if there is no gifting provision, it really does muddy up the waters, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And there are a number of different ways that you can write the gifting provision. I would say that more often than not, we see a plenary authority that's granted to the agent to do gifting, but gifting can be restricted as well. There can be what's called a 5 and 5 power, where the agent is only allowed to gift $5,000 or 5% of the value of the person's estate, hence, you know, the term 5 and 5 power. The other, I think, critically important element in a power of attorney, a durable power of attorney, is the election of who the person would want to be nominated by the probate court in the event protective proceedings are initiated.
Such as a guardianship.
Such as a guardianship.
Yes.
You know, just this morning, you know, a client came in. He was somewhat distraught. His dad is bringing, you know, some action against him to withdraw the power of attorney, to revoke his rights under the power of attorney, revoke his appointment as a trustee in some of the estate planning work that they had done before. And you know, it's sad for him, although he does have that language in the durable power of attorney that indicates in the event protective proceedings are needed to be initiated, the father wanted the son to be the agent in that particular case.
Right. You're absolutely correct. I know the case you're talking about. So,
you know, it's going to be somewhat difficult for the guy, and it's not going to be an easy situation for him to face, but I think legally he's done what it is that he has to do,
yes,
so that in any event he's able to address these issues as they come up. The other thing I wanted to talk about briefly is the healthcare proxy. An awful lot like a durable power of attorney, has some differences, but again, it's a contractual obligation guided by the laws of agency. There's a principal and there's a health care agent, and that health care agent makes decisions on behalf of the principal in the event the principal is not able to make those decisions themselves.
It's an extremely important document, and as I said, with the durable power of attorney, with the healthcare proxy, it's probably even more so that the agent understands what the principal wants in the case, you know, of medical care, because a lot of times when the healthcare proxy goes into effect or has to be utilized, the person they could be in a coma. They could be so ill that they cannot make these medical decisions. And I think the agent has to have a true understanding of what the wishes are of the principal in that case. It's a critical document.
We're going to head to a break right now. When we come back, we're going to talk about more healthcare proxy information right after these messages.
Millbury Healthcare Center is a highly respected 5-star deficiency-free skilled nursing and rehabilitation center. We are renowned for our compassionate care and specialty programming, making it possible for your next step, returning home. We listen and take the time to understand your goals. We provide support and the tools needed to safely prepare for your transition home. Millbury Healthcare Center is the community choice for skilled nursing and rehabilitation.
Does your loved one suffer from memory impairment, dementia, or Alzheimer's disease? Consider Dodge Park Rest Home in Worcester. Our geriatric medical team and nursing staff are available 24 hours a day. We offer medication administration and incontinence care with dignity. Our activity programs are designed to engage and stimulate the mind. And with Dodge Park Rest Home, you can better protect your estate and save your assets with only a 1-year look back. Your loved one will feel safe and at home with Dodge Park Rest Home of Worcester.
Are you searching for health answers? Want to find the best local healthcare specialists? Go to chartertv3.com. Our weekly health watch covers all the local health news you need to know. Go to chartertv3.com and click on worcester.md. You can find the best local healthcare professionals, get articles, watch videos, and rate your doctor all with one click. So tune in to Charter TV3 or go online to chartertv3.com/health and access the best local health resources. Charter TV3 and chartertv3.com. Always on.
Do you have medications at home that you don't use anymore and you're wondering how to dispose of them? Safe disposal of prescription drugs protects children from accidental ingestion, as well as prevents prescription drug abuse or misuse. National Prescription Take-Back Day will be held on Saturday, April 28th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Worcester Senior Center. Bring any medications that you don't use anymore for safe disposal. This service is free and anonymous, no questions asked. Call us at 508-799-8531 for more information.
Promotional message provided by the City of Worcester and Charter TV3.
Did you know that heart disease and stroke together claim more lives than any other cause of death? Scary but true. That's why the American Heart Association makes it their mission to build healthier lives free of heart disease and stroke. Join Charter TV3 in fighting heart disease and stroke at the 2012 Central Mass Heart Walk on Saturday, May 5th at East Park in Worcester. Every step you take will raise funds to support life-saving heart and stroke research. Help us beat heart disease.
I'm Caitlin Tivnan from Worcester News Tonight. Thank you for choosing Charter.
Welcome back to the Senior Focus and my discussion with attorney Kathy Chekani. We're talking about healthcare proxies.
Yes, we were.
How important they are. And you know, I think the fact that Massachusetts has passed the Uniform Probate Code, of course, I'm not quite certain how uniform it is. I think that oftentimes someone will find that a particular probate court might procedurally, we'll say, implement things in a different way.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of work that you see, a lot of these surrogate decision-making documents were done at a time when there was no uniform probate code, and that changed the law.
Yes.
You know, with respect to a healthcare proxy, didn't really change the fundamental elements that are necessary to create a valid document. But let's talk about what some of those requirements are. What do you need for the healthcare proxy to be recognized in Massachusetts?
Well, basically, you have to have, we'll call it a principal, person who wants to have somebody make their decisions for them.
And they've got to sign the document.
Correct. And then you have your actual healthcare proxies, and usually there's a primary, and then there's a successor in case the primary cannot serve.
And that's all you need, right?
Right.
Now, of course, you know, In our office, we do it a little bit differently, and we have it notarized, and there are
Yeah.
witnesses to the proxies. The law states that you can only have one proxy at a time.
Right.
A lot of people want to have 2 of their children, 3 of their children be the proxy, and we have to explain to them that according to the laws in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, only one person can be appointed as your proxy at a time.
Right. And plus the other thing is if you've got, we'll just say a parent, and they've got 3 or 4 children, and the problem you would run into if all 4 of them are the proxies is the battle or the debate between the children of how what you're going to do. Are you going to put them on life support? Are you going to put them on artificial nutrition? What are you going to do? Some will say, oh, Ma didn't want that, and the others say, oh, yes, she would want that, and there would be that battle. So I think when you choose one proxy with a successor, and that primary proxy understands what the principal wants, you have to trust they're carrying out the wishes of the principal rather than what they would want personally or what their siblings may want. It's what the principal wants to see happen.
That bodes and argues in favor of having a thorough and comprehensive document. You go to the hospital, you go to your doctor, they stick the 1-page proxy in front of you.
Yep.
It's completely devoid of what it is you would want, other than it appoints someone to act on your behalf as an agent. But as far as saying what it is you want or don't want, even how the document would be revoked, it's completely silent, doesn't say anything.
No, and then the problem you run into that is it's such a template that the agent now has to figure out, okay, what would they want, and should I do this, shouldn't I do that? But if it's out there in print, this is what I want under these circumstances, it actually makes the proxy's job a little bit easier.
Right.
Rather than trying to guess, well, what would they want, unless they never had a conversation.
Yeah, I think it makes the proxy's job a lot easier.
Right.
There's written specific direction on what the principal wants and doesn't want.
Right.
Another thing I oftentimes will tell people, not oftentimes, all the times, I tell people that the healthcare professional isn't obligated to follow the direction of the healthcare agent.
Right.
In the event they don't follow the direction of the healthcare agent, they're obligated to transfer the care of the patient to a medical professional that will listen to and follow the direction of the agent. But in the first instance, they don't have to follow the direction. We'll say Commonwealth of Massachusetts isn't going to legislate morality to the medical profession. However, in the event the medical provider, the doctor, doesn't follow the direction of the agent, they're obligated to pass the person's care on to a medical provider that will.
Yes.
What about those situations where an individual hasn't executed these surrogate decision-making documents and then loses capacity?
Well,
Can they still execute these documents?
no. But what would happen is somebody would have to probably go to court to get guardianship, which is, as you know, very costly, and basically puts all, we'll call the dirty laundry out for the public to hear.
There's a loss of privacy.
The loss of privacy, and so it's not an easy thing to do, and I think that goes back to what we were saying in the beginning about trying to execute a lot of these documents when you have the capacity, when you're clear about what you want to see happen, because then they're in place. When the need arises, the documents are in place and can basically, I hate to use the term spring into action, but jump in there, and to get things going for you.
I don't envy the position the courts oftentimes placed in where they have to be the final arbiter of facts and make a decision one way or the other, but I always let people know, it isn't my favorite place to go. I don't like to go to probate court, and if I don't like to go to probate court, they're going to like it way less than me.
Right.
So when the person's able to make a decision and they have the capacity and the competence to say what it is they like and don't like, I think it's incumbent upon them to make a decision and to reduce it to writing and to memorialize what their feelings are.
Yes,
a lot of people don't do that. It's a crisis-driven society. They'll wait till the very last moment, and then they, like you say, look to spring into action when something happens. It's kind of too late.
Too late to do it, yeah. And again, I think sometimes it's about control, that people want to keep control of their lives. They want to make the decisions, and they're not thinking something could happen where I'm not going to be able to make these decisions by myself.
That raises a good and a valid point. With the healthcare proxy, a person remains in control until they've lost capacity and they're no longer able to make an informed decision, to give informed consent relative to medical treatment, at which point that document, the healthcare proxy, is invoked by the medical provider.
Right.
So they're not really giving up anything.
No.
They're just appointing someone to help them in the event they're not able to help themselves.
Right, in case something happens.
A little bit different than the durable power of attorney. 99% probably of what we see, what we draft in the office, is an immediate durable power of attorney.
Right.
When it's notarized and witnessed and signed, it's a valid document. Healthcare proxy, unless the document is invoked, it lacks validity.
Right.
What happens in the event that a person lacks capacity and the medical provider invokes the healthcare proxy, but thereafter they regain capacity?
Well, then, if they regain capacity, then they're able to make their own medical decisions again. So,
So-
it stops.
Right.
The healthcare proxy stops, and the medical provider would be going, in this case, to the principal and saying, okay, here's what we want to do. Here's what the pros and cons of your treatment. What would you like to see happen?
I've had people ask me that specific question that,
Yeah.
hey, look, in the event something happens, but then I'm okay, I don't want them to keep going,
Making the decisions.
to my kid or to my spouse. I would like to be able to make those decisions for myself if I'm able to do so. And I think that's precisely what you just said.
Yes. And I have to tell you a story, Nick, is a friend of mine, her mother-in-law was in for treatment, and the doctor wants her to go on a particular medication for cardiac. And her son is a healthcare proxy, and the mother is refusing the treatment. And they're like, my friend's husband is like, very upset because his mother is refusing the treatment. And so I had a conversation with them, and she said, well, what can you do? And I said, well, she has the capacity to make this decision. She has the capacity to refuse the treatment. I said, and so as long as she understands the consequences of not undergoing this medical treatment, that is her decision to make, and they're caught between a rock and a hard place because they want her to have this treatment, but she's in her 80s, she's made this decision, and then the choice is hers.
So there's a clear distinction between what's in the best interest of the person
Right.
and what the desires of the person are.
Right.
The healthcare proxy, the agent, can't render decisions that agent feels is in the best interest of the person.
Right.
That agent steps into the shoes of the principal, and whatever the principal said they wanted is what the agent is charged with the responsibility of seeing it happen.
Exactly.
That's why I think the more thorough the document is, and certain desires are written in black and white on a piece of paper, notarized and witnessed, it makes life that much easier for the agent.
Right.
If that's not in that particular, in that document, whether there's contests by other family members, whether a physician is not going to want to abide by the direction of the agent, the healthcare agent, does make it a little bit more difficult.
Yes.
But we're going to head to a break right now. When we
Okay.
come back, I'd like to talk a little bit about wills and testamentary trusts.
All righty.
Does your loved one suffer from memory impairment, dementia, or Alzheimer's disease? Consider Dodge Park Rest Home in Worcester. Our geriatric medical team and nursing staff are available 24 hours a day. We offer medication administration and incontinence care with dignity. Our activity programs are designed to engage and stimulate the mind. And with Dodge Park Rest Home, you can better protect your estate and save your assets with only a 1-year look back. Your loved one will feel safe and at home with Dodge Park Rest Home of Worcester.
Millbury Healthcare Center is a highly respected 5-star deficiency-free skilled nursing and rehabilitation center. We are renowned for our compassionate care and specialty programming, making it possible for your next step, returning home. We listen and take the time to understand your goals. We provide support and the tools needed to safely prepare for your transition home. Millbury Healthcare Center is the community choice for skilled nursing and rehabilitation.
Join Girls Inc. of Worcester at its annual Girls Celebration, honoring teen girls and community leaders with guest speaker Cheryl Ann Gangle, founder of Be Like Brit, and a special presentation by our expressive arts performance troupe, Dear World, Voices of Worcester Girls, on Thursday, May 3rd at the Manor Restaurant in West Boylston. For additional information or for tickets, please visit us at girlsincworcester.org. Charter Communications and Charter TV3 are proud sponsors of the Girls Celebration. Are you searching for help answers? Want to find the best local healthcare specialists? Go to chartertv3.com. Our weekly Health Watch covers all the local health news you need to know. Go to chartertv3.com and click on worcester.md. You can find the best local healthcare professionals, get articles, watch videos, and rate your doctor all with one click. So tune in to Charter TV3 or go online to chartertv3.com/health and access the best local health resources. Charter TV3 and chartertv3.com. Always on. Consider donating new or gently used books at sites around Worcester for the 6th annual Worcester, the City That Reads book drive. The committee hopes to collect 26,000 books this year, with the goal to provide summer reading material to children who may not otherwise have access to books. The books for children in pre-kindergarten through grade 8 are being accepted at this time. Donations are accepted at the following locations, and book collections are also being held by Worcester Public High Schools, Worcester colleges and universities, private schools, and organizations.
I'm Siobhan Connolly from Worcester News Tonight. Thank you for choosing Charter.
Welcome back to the Senior Focus with Kathy Chekani, attorney Kathy Chekani. We're talking about surrogate decision-making documents, and I want to switch the focus to wills and trusts at the moment. I want to talk about it in terms of Mass Health, Medicaid. So many people that we see want to and need some kind of long-term care benefits, and they don't have the money to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars per month. So whatever planning they do has to be done with an eye toward long-term care planning.
Right.
And if a person does a will, is there any anything that would disqualify the person from benefits if they do a will?
No.
Okay. So a person is able to have total control over their assets and have a will, and the will basically does what?
Basically, their estate gets distributed upon their passing. So in the case where there's a couple, in most cases, the estate, whatever's within the estate, goes to the surviving spouse.
Right, so the will basically directs the distribution of the estate.
Exactly.
If a person has a specific distribution in mind, they need to reduce it to writing, put it in the will, and then they can have court oversight and ensure that that particular distribution occurs.
Correct.
And you hear a lot of language, about trusts. What is a testamentary trust?
Well, basically, although this is not my total forte.
Yeah.
And my understanding of it is basically it's the will usually dictates, it's in a trust, it's protected, but the will is within the trust. It basically
The trust is within the will.
Well, the trust is within the
Okay,
will, which
yeah.
basically dictates how the estate will be distributed
Right.
upon the passing of the individual.
So with the testamentary trust, there is a trust, but it doesn't get funded until the assets pass through probate court,
Right.
and a judge says, okay, the will is valid, and the distribution occurs from the person's estate into the testamentary
Testamentary
trust.
trust, right.
Now, in certain circumstances, that has great utility in Medicaid planning.
Yes, it does. I mean, we have a client, and this is probably just a little bit different, but whose husband is applying for Mass Health. And what Mass Health allows basically is for the assets of the spouse going into the nursing home to go to the community-based spouse. But
And when that happens, there's never disqualification. That's always permissible.
it's permissible up to a particular asset limit, which is right now for the community spouse a little over 113,000,
So we'll say,
excluding their primary residence.
so we'll say eligibility
Yes.
starts at anything below, we'll say 113.
Right.
But as far as transfers to the spouse, always permissible.
Always permissible.
Okay.
So in this circumstances, the client that we have, the assets are being transferred to the community spouse, but now she wants to protect for the future.
Right.
So she takes a portion of those assets and moves it into a testamentary. Basically, she has a will, and the testamentary trust is within.
Right, upon her demise, the assets pass from her estate
Right,
into
to the
this testamentary trust.
Right.
And there's specific language in the Code of Mass Regulations that allow the funding of a testamentary trust, and the funding of the testamentary trust will not have disqualification for Mass Health purposes. So basically, I mean, the way I look at it, in the event the community spouse, the spouse that's at home, wants to remain in control over the assets, and upon his or her demise, have the assets go into this trust so that the a spouse that's in the nursing home can be cared for, you know, in part through the value of the assets that are in the trust. Upon the demise of the person in the nursing home, those assets can then be distributed to the children.
Right.
There are also trusts that are not testamentary trusts. We'll call them inter vivos trusts, living trusts,
Yes.
revocable trusts, and irrevocable trusts. If a person does a revocable trust, a revocable trust means just what it says, right? It can be revoked, it can be amended, changed, you can rip it up, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
It's revocable. It's like taking money from one pants pocket, putting it into the other pants
Right.
pocket. It's still your money.
Right.
If a person has a revocable trust and applies for Mass Health benefits, what happens?
It'll be approved, the trust. I mean, if they put it into a trust,
A revocable trust.
oh, a revocable, no, Mass Health would not allow
So Mass
it.
Health will count those assets
count
in the
them.
trust.
The basis behind Mass Health is when there's a transfer of assets, say, into a trust, the only way they become non-countable is to be an irrevocable, meaning the applicant for Mass Health cannot get their hands on what's in the trust and utilize that. If
They
can-
basically remove it from their estate.
Right, because the Mass Health premises, if you can get your hands on your money, then it should be going to paying towards a nursing home.
But a revocable trust does have utility for certain purposes.
Yeah.
Number one, all trusts avoid probate, right?
Right,
And a lot of people, for whatever reason, want to avoid probate.
right, because it's work.
It,
For the administrator, it's work.
it is work for the administrator. A lot of people will come in and say, hey, I want to make it as easy for my children as possible. I don't want them to have to go to court. I don't want them to struggle with this. I want it to just happen. When I pass away, I want it to just happen.
Right.
And with the revocable trust, although it doesn't have application in Medicaid planning,
Right.
that will happen.
Yes.
The assets will pass by operation of law rather than probate court decree. If your assets are in a revocable trust, you don't even have to go to probate court.
Right.
You don't have probate assets.
Right.
Another use for the revocable trust is to help minimize taxes. So in the event a person has a rather large estate and they want to minimize their taxes, that can be done through a revocable trust. It can also be done through a testamentary trust in the will. But of course, we're talking about a situation where there's a husband and a wife. But there are circumstances where an individual might be married for the second time, have children from the first marriage, want to provide for the current spouse.
Yeah.
But upon that person's demise, would like to see the assets, rather than go to the spouse's estate, have those assets, or at least a portion of those assets, go to the children from the first marriage. A perfect scenario for a revocable trust. Another situation I think would be very useful for a revocable trust, perhaps the spouse that's at home, or the well spouse, I'll say the well spouse, hasn't done a lot of financial planning, isn't the one that's responsible for writing the checks, doesn't pay the bills, doesn't handle the money. And the spouse that has the revocable trust thinks, well, I don't want to put my spouse in the position where, now he or she has to manage the money and be the one responsible. So if you do a revocable trust, there can be professional management of the assets in that trust.
By a trustee.
By a trustee.
Right.
And then, of course, an irrevocable trust.
My favorite.
Your favorite. And for good reason, because if a person wants to try to plan for the future and they want to try to, we'll say, avoid some of the costs of long-term care, which are astronomical, there's no doubt about it. What's the cost of a nursing home now?
Average?
Yeah, average.
10 to 12,000 a month.
10 to 12 a month.
Yes.
That's a stunning number.
Yes.
If you've done some planning, the cost that Mass Health pays is going to be what? Maybe half? Something like half?
In that ballpark, yes.
Yeah. I know that every particular nursing home has a contract with Mass Health, and the reimbursement rates are different, and it all depends what a person needs, and what the needs are of that person will determine the ultimate cost. And I think sometimes Mass Health might pay $10,000 for the care of a person, but more often than not, I think it's approximately a 50% type thing. They pay approximately 50% of what the private pay rate would be.
Yeah.
And that's really important, because when we come back, we're going to head to a break in a moment, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the Elder Economic Security Standard. And how it's a test that was created by the University of Massachusetts, and I think people in Massachusetts have very difficult, and it's very important for people to understand this and to hear this. So when we come back on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about the Elder Economic Security Standard.
Millbury Healthcare Center is a highly respected 5-star, deficiency-free skilled nursing and rehabilitation center. We are renowned for our compassionate care and specialty programming, making it possible for your next step, returning home. We listen and take the time to understand your goals. We provide support and the tools needed to safely prepare for your transition home. Millbury Healthcare Center is the community choice for skilled nursing and rehabilitation.
Does your loved one suffer from memory impairment, dementia, or Alzheimer's disease? consider Dodge Park Rest Home in Worcester. Our geriatric medical team and nursing staff are available 24 hours a day. We offer medication administration and incontinence care with dignity. Our activity programs are designed to engage and stimulate the mind. And with Dodge Park Rest Home, you can better protect your estate and save your assets with only a 1-year look back. Your loved one will feel safe and at home with Dodge Park Rest Home of Worcester.
Did you know that heart disease and stroke together claim more lives than any other cause of death? Scary but true. That's why the American Heart Association makes it their mission to build healthier lives free of heart disease and stroke. Join Charter TV3 in fighting heart disease and stroke at the 2012 Central Mass Heart Walk on Saturday, May 5th at East Park in Worcester. Every step you take will raise funds to support life-saving heart and stroke research. Help us beat heart disease.
Do you have medications at home that you don't use anymore and you're wondering how to dispose of them? Safe disposal of prescription drugs protects children from accidental ingestion, as well as prevents prescription drug abuse or misuse. National Prescription Take-Back Day will be held on Saturday, April 28th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Worcester Senior Center. Bring any medications that you don't use anymore for safe disposal. This service is free and anonymous, no questions asked. Call us at 508-799-8531 for more information.
Promotional message provided by the City of Worcester and Charter TV3.
Tired of weather reports that don't focus on Central Mass? Introducing Worcester Weather, the only video weather report for Worcester. Worcester Weather is easily accessible 24/7 by visiting chartertv3.com. It is updated throughout the day to give you the best video forecast possible. Worcester Weather also airs at 5 p.m. during the Jordan Levy Show and every Worcester News Tonight telecast. Worcester Weather gives you the local forecast you have always wanted. Worcester Weather on Charter TV3 and chartertv3.com. Brought to you by Berterra Nissan of Auburn.
I'm Andy Lacombe from Worcester News Tonight. Thank you for choosing Charter.
Welcome back to the Senior Focus. Kathy, we're going to talk about the Elder Economic Security Standard.
Okay.
The Gerontology Institute at the University of Massachusetts in Boston. Have you heard of them?
Yes.
They've developed something called an Elder Economic Security Standard.
Okay.
Basically, they take a look at basic living expenses and whether a person is able to meet basic living expenses to be able to stay, in the community. And they define economic security as whether a senior has sufficient income without public benefits to be able to meet their expenses. So they look at basic living expenses, housing, food, transportation, medical care, clothing, household supplies, that type of thing.
Okay.
And the shocking results are that Massachusetts is the very worst state for someone to grow old because they have the least economic security in Massachusetts.
I know, when you told me that, I was in shock.
They say that the amount of income that a senior household, an elderly household, gets in Massachusetts covers about 60% of the expense necessary for that person to be able to stay in the community in their own homes.
Wow.
The income that a person gets is about $17,000, and it costs about $27,000 to be able to remain in your home here in Massachusetts. So there's approximately a $10,000 shortfall of what a person brings in and what they need to spend out to be able to stay in their home. It's a frightening scenario,
It is.
particularly for people who are elderly on a fixed budget. They don't see, and there really is no way for them to increase the income. We're talking about finding cost savings, trying to, reduce the expense necessary for that person to be able to stay in their home.
I know. You and I had this discussion because I was trying to figure out why would Massachusetts be the worst? Why is it so expensive? I mean, there are other states that have a higher cost of living than we do, and I think you said something about housing alone or something like that.
Well,
there was different things that why the expenses are so
Yeah,
bad
I
in
think
Massachusetts.
that the reason there's such a large gap in Massachusetts is because when a person retires, there's a tendency in Massachusetts for that senior only to get Social Security. They don't have 401ks, they don't have pensions. I'm not saying that applies to everyone across the board.
Right.
We all know there are many rich people that reside here in Massachusetts.
Right.
But on average, when a person retires in Massachusetts, they retire on Social Security. They don't have other retirement benefits that inure to them, that come to them. So in Massachusetts, the cost of living exceeds what a person gets from Social Security by, I think, a rather significant amount.
Yeah.
Whereas if you take a look at some of the other states, not only do they get the Social Security, but perhaps there's some element of pension earnings as well.
Yeah.
A lot of the industrialized states are at the very top of this elder economic security standard, whether it's Connecticut, New York, Rhode Island, and sad to say, Massachusetts leads the way. I was shocked to have heard that.
Does that mean the residents of Massachusetts don't do very good financial planning for retirement?
I don't know that it means that they don't do very good financial planning for retirement. I think it means that when you take a look at the income that they have coming in,
Right.
it simply is insufficient to cover the expenses necessary for them to remain in the community.
But I guess what I was saying is that, because you're talking about other states where people have other sources of income other than Social Security. They've got pension plans, and they probably, maybe IRAs or whatever.
And I think their standard of living in those states
Yeah.
is much less than in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And I think, at $10,000, there's still, if you go to the best state, like I think it's Hawaii or Alaska, not Hawaii, Alaska, I think the shortfall is about $700 a month. So, a year, I'm sorry, $700 a year. So we're not talking this great discrepancy. The worst state, $10,000, the best state, $700. There is a little bit of play there. I'd much rather be in a situation where my shortfall is $700
Right.
rather than $10,000, but we're not talking, a greater amount of money than that. And if the standard of living in certain states is significantly reduced from what it is in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Social Security is the same throughout the country.
Right.
Now, depending on a person's work history and how much they made and so on and so forth, Social Security benefits will vary from individual to individual. The basic formula, which is tremendously complicated, and I'm not even going to attempt to go into it now, remains the same. It's the same for everyone.
Right.
Formula's the same. The benefit rate, the amount of your benefit is going to change from individual to individual. But, I think that's why we see in Massachusetts a lot of action on trying to find cost savings. Whether it's transportation reform, whether, it's, for instance, the reform that occurred for Mass Health, or that they're trying to implement for Mass Health. So it's not a fee-for-service program, but a managed care program. They're trying to control costs,
Yeah.
which, again, this is one of the reasons why it's so important to plan in Massachusetts prospectively, so that in the event you are going to need long-term care benefits, don't wait until a crisis occurs and then it becomes virtually impossible to be able to pay, to do your planning, because we know from the Elder Economic Security Standard, people in Massachusetts have a very difficult time as it is.
Right.
If they wait and they don't do their planning, then it's going to be that much more difficult for them. Basically, they're not going to be able to pay the cost of a nursing home. As we said, what did you say? The average cost anywhere between maybe $10,000, $12,000. I mean, that's a big number.
It is. Even people with, we'll say, significant assets, and when somebody goes into the nursing home, think how quickly at $10,000, $12,000 a month, those assets will be, diminished.
I see people that come into the office and the person is on private pay, their Medicare has run out. Medicare provides a very limited long-term care benefit, right? 20 days they'll pay in totality, and then there's a rather stiff copay for the next 80 days. You're entitled to up to 100 days. You never see 100 days any longer.
Never.
And people aren't proceeding with a sense of urgency, and I think probably a big reason for that is the nursing home is going to let the costs build up a little bit. Before they tell you, hey, you owe me money, they might end up saying 3, 4, 5 months later, hey, you owe us $75,000. It's very important that the rules of nursing home eligibility for Mass Health is understood by people.
Oh, absolutely.
We don't have enough time today to get into it, but there are certain things that, are very, very useful, whether it's a caretaker child exception for a primary home, whether it is the purchase of an annuity so that it isn't a disqualifying transfer upon the purchase of the annuity, and you have to use special language to get that treatment for Mass Health. But there are certain planning techniques a person can use so that they can meet the anticipated future costs of health care.
Absolutely.
Not to do anything outside what the regulations provide, but if you act within the regulations, you're able to do some kind of planning. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our program. I want to thank Kathy Chekani for coming in. Thank you, Attorney Chekani.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. In the event anyone has any questions about today's show, feel free to visit the website at theseniorfocus.com, or you can feel free to call me at 508-755-6525. And of course, most of all, thank you for watching. See you next week.